just got out of the springs at Carson Hot Springs, and I'm all relaxed from lots of calcium and potassium and magnesium infusing through my system into my bloodstream, and a little bit of sulfur. And I want to talk about neuro-linguistic programming today and the way that I've been utilizing it in my one-on-one coaching. So I have a premium coaching package where I work with people one-on-one over a number of months. And I've been wanting to incorporate NLP more and more into this. And so I've had a great opportunity with this new client of mine because she has chronic headaches. She doesn't have migraines. Her headaches don't fluctuate with hormonal fluctuations or go away when she's pregnant, which she is right now. And she's tried everything under the sun. So I was a little bit hesitant to take her on, but she's a great candidate for neuro-linguistic programming and looking at some of the more emotional, spiritual, and ancestral causes of tension patterns. And she's really game for doing this work. So I just wanted to share with you some of the process that I'm going through with her in the coaching. And it has a lot to do with right now with, first of all, getting clear on the outcome that she's seeking and stating that in positive terms, because of course she wants to get out of pain, but that's actually a negative description. So a meta outcome is, what would that provide? If her goal is to get out of headache, what would that provide her? What would be the meta outcome of that? And what it would provide her is greater presence and a sense of resourcefulness and resiliency in her interactions with her family and her children when she's at home specifically, so that there's greater ease and play and a sense of flow in her life, which is very hard for her to accomplish when she has the pressure and the pain of her headache. So we helped clarify the goal of what she wants. And then the next question is like, well, if that's something you really want so much, then why don't you have that? And the premise behind this question, which seems a little silly, is that the experiences we have in life, the habits that we have, and the outcomes that we have, if we say they're undesirable, well, they must not be undesirable because they're still happening. So there must be something that we're getting out of it that is perhaps largely unconscious, that allows that thing to persist in our life. And of course, these patterns, these tension patterns can be difficult because a lot of the tension patterns come from childhood. Our coping mechanisms with stress are deeply embedded and not only just come from our childhood, but many of them are passed down through ancestral patterns and ways of coping with stress. So in this case with this client, her pattern around pushing through pain and believing that that's a way that she can prove her resiliency is something that she inherited, it appears, from her grandmother on her paternal side. So it just so happens that on her paternal side, there's a lot of neck tension, and her father's mother was in pain a lot and kind of instilled this value that you don't let pain stop you. That pain is actually a way to prove to other people how strong you are. So we can begin to see how difficult it could be to heal a chronic condition if your identity is wrapped up in using it as a way to prove how resilient or strong you are, right? So the goal with neuro-linguistic programming would be to test for this, to ask ourselves, is there another way that we can get the same benefits that the chronic illness is providing us in a different way, with the understanding that the motivation behind that isn't bad, but the strategy is not optimal, right? The strategy of having to be sick in order to prove how resilient you are is maladaptive. And so it's a really interesting question to start to ask ourselves, and I'm asking you this now, whether you're someone with migraine or some other health condition or some other habit that you say is less than optimal, what is it providing for you? So in my case with chronic migraine, it provided quite a bit that I was unconscious of initially. Getting chronically ill provided me an opportunity to feel justified in resting. As a mother to a young child with literally no support beyond my husband, no aunties or uncles, we moved constantly. I did not feel a sense of value that was strong enough to where I felt a sense of permission of being able to rest unless I had a migraine. So this points to this issue of low self-worth that afflicts many mothers, especially, that our value is tied up in how much we can perform and in how how little we rest, how productive we are. In other words, how masculine and yang we are, and we're not. And then we wonder why we're sick, because we're not giving ourselves the space to decompress, right? We don't feel we're worth it. That's a problem. That's something that needs to be examined. Another thing that chronic migraine gave me was a permission slip to research. I don't think I otherwise would have felt justified in taking the amount of time that I did in researching had I not been that sick. So there's a lot that we get out of this, again, unconsciously. And I believe as a soul, we agree to explore certain themes in our life. A chronic illness is like a catalyst that allows us to explore themes of taking self-responsibility for our life. And I think this is something that as souls we agree to do, even though our ego, struggles with that. So these are just a few ideas I'm sharing with you. In the case of this client of mine, she very readily admitted that having migraine gives her permission to rest, similar to what I experienced. And it's a permission that she otherwise wouldn't feel. She feels that she would not feel justified in resting and offloading some of her childcare duties and household duties and tasks to her husband if she didn't have that as an excuse. So she's not only carrying on a lineage of this belief that by proving how capable she is by pushing through pain, that she is an amazing, accomplished person. This is something she inherited from her grandmother and that she's now passing down onto her daughter. So our identity gets wrapped up in these things, and it's really valuable. This is all just, to say it's valuable to examine some of the unconscious motives we may have. All of this I'm doing as a way to test for how we can actually kind of start to dismantle and reprogram some of those limiting beliefs through NLP. But first we have to check for what is it that we're getting out of the behavior that we say we don't prefer